People always say the tech world is heartless, but no one warned me it could be humiliating too. I realized that truth the moment my fiercest rival walked into the boardroom holding a latte that smelled more expensive than my entire morning. And just like that, my day was ruined. Elena Hart, CEO of the rising AI giant Lioness Labs, moved with the kind of effortless confidence that drove journalists wild and investors straight into her hands. Her heels clicked sharply against the polished floor of the San Francisco Innovation Council headquarters, her posture relaxed but powerful, her eyes scanning the room with the precision of someone accustomed to owning every space she entered. And she did own it. Or she thought she did. Across from her, I stood stiffly at the head of the table, forcing myself not to react. I was Arya Nguyen, founder and CEO of Nova Mind Systems, a company people called the moral compass of AI. I never sought that title, but the moment we launched our human-centric algorithm framework, Lioness Labs became our biggest threat. Or rather, Elena did. And now we had been summoned here together, forced into the same room by a government advisory panel demanding cooperation on a federal initiative involving ethical AI deployment across the country. I would have preferred a root canal. The overhead lights hummed. The city skyline glittered beyond the glass walls. 30 minutes into the meeting, the tension was practically a third participant. The lead commissioner closed his binder. Ms. Nguyen, Ms. Hart, you'll need to produce a joint proposal within 30 days. I swear I heard Elena choke on air. Good. Suffer with me. She recovered fast, lips curving into a smile that was equal parts charming and dangerous. I'm sure Arya and I can find common ground. I met her gaze with the coldest neutrality I could muster. Professional ground, I corrected. Her smirk deepened as though she could hear everything I didn't say. When the meeting adjourned, Elena caught up to me in the hallway, effortlessly matching my pace. You know, she said lightly, you could at least pretend you're happy to see me. I save my acting for shareholders, I shot back. She laughed. And God help me, it was a nice sound. I hated that. I'll email you, I said curtly, stepping into the elevator. Looking forward to it, she replied, leaning against the doorframe just long enough to appear cinematic. Try not to ignore me for more than a week this time. The elevator closed, cutting off her smirk, but not the flutter it left in my chest. I refused to acknowledge the flutter. The city buzzed as if it sensed trouble that night. San Francisco was chilly, the fog rolling in early and swallowing entire blocks in muted gray. My office was still lit when most of the financial district had gone dark. Screens glowed with code, research documents, and the beginnings of the dreaded joint proposal outline. I massaged my temples, rereading the requirement for collaboration. 30 days, I muttered. Of all the people they could have paired me with. My phone vibrated. A new email. From Elena Hart. Subject. Cooperation terms. Winky face. I stared at the winking emoji for a full 10 seconds. I opened it. Let's schedule something before the week ends. Dinner? Neutral territory. I promise I won't sabotage your salad. I groaned into my hands. But deep down, buried under logic, rivalry, and years of complicated headlines, I felt something else. Curiosity. The dangerous kind. The first collision we met the following night at a modern restaurant in Soma that Elena had chosen. Minimalist decor, soft lighting, glasses that looked like they belonged in a museum. When I walked in, she was already seated, scrolling through her phone, her expression almost softened. Almost. She looked up and for a moment, something unspoken flickered between us. You came, she said. Don't sound so surprised. She gestured for me to sit. Consider me pleasantly optimistic. That sounds like a terrible business strategy. Good thing this isn't business, she said softly. The waiter arrived before I could unpack that. Dinner was civil. Actually, dangerously close to enjoyable. We discussed AI standards, regulatory chaos in Washington, even the messiness of leading a company in an era where every misstep became a viral headline. But then the conversation shifted. Why do you hate me so much? Elena asked suddenly, leaning back in her chair. I don't hate you, I said. Her eyebrow rose. I exhaled. Fine. I dislike your approach. You move too fast, you court risk for publicity, you treat innovation like a race. It is a race, she said simply. To you, I replied. To me, it's responsibility. Her expression softened in a way I had never seen on magazine covers or press conferences. You know, investors say the same thing. That I'm reckless. That I don't think long term. That I'm too emotional. I blinked. Emotional? You. She smiled sadly. You'd be surprised. Something inside me shifted barely but decidedly. You're not reckless, I said after a moment. You're driven. And that scares people. Her eyes widened slightly. Does it scare you? Yes, I said honestly. She didn't look triumphant. She looked human. Outside the restaurant when dinner ended, the fog had thickened to the point where streetlights blurred like smudges of gold. We walked side by side toward the curb where her driver waited. Tonight wasn't terrible, she said. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Don't get used to it. A car horn echoed through the street. Elena hesitated, turning to face me fully. I know we're supposed to work together for this proposal, she said quietly, but I also don't want it to be miserable for you. Miserable for me? I repeated. You think you're that unbearable? She smiled. No. I think I'm that distracting. I froze. For a split second, neither of us breathed. Then she stepped back, opening the car door. I'll see you soon, Arya. And then she was gone, swallowed by fog and taillights. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. Distracting. The worst part was that she was right. The project begins over the next week. We met repeatedly in offices, cafes, co-working spaces filled with startup hopefuls. Our conversations evolved from icy negotiations to tense intellectual debates, then to something dangerously close to camaraderie. One afternoon, as we stood overlooking the bay from Lioness Lab's rooftop terrace, Elena crossed her arms, watching the water shimmer under the California sun. You know, she said, the media loves turning us into enemies. They want the catfight narrative. Rival female CEOs clawing for power. It sells. It's disgusting, I muttered. It is, she agreed. But sometimes I wonder, if we had met before the headlines shaped us, would we have ever become rivals? I turned to her. No, I said before thinking. I think we would have been friends. She looked at me, something soft and startled passing through her eyes. Friends, she repeated quietly. Right. I didn't know why the word suddenly hurt. The unexpected crack 3 days later it happened. We were working late in my office, papers scattered everywhere. The city glowing below us. Elena had kicked off her heels hours ago. Legs folded under her as she sat on my couch typing. Your posture is terrible, I teased. Bossy, she muttered without looking up. Says the woman who forced an entire engineering team to switch code libraries overnight. They survived. Barely. She smiled and then suddenly winced, pressing a hand to her temple. Headache? I asked. It's nothing. But it wasn't nothing. 10 minutes later she was pale, unfocused, her breathing uneven. Elena, I said sharply, moving toward her. Sit back. Hey, look at me. She tried to wave me off, but her hands trembled. I kneeled beside the couch. You need to slow down. You can't keep burning through days like this. She opened her mouth, closed it, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked breakable. I don't know how, she whispered. I swallowed hard. Without thinking, I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Her fingers were cold, and something inside me cracked wide open. The moment that changed everything when her breathing steadied and the color returned to her cheeks, she exhaled softly. Thank you, she murmured. You don't need to thank me, I said. You just need to stop pretending you're made of steel. She laughed weakly. I thought you preferred me that way. I never said that. She looked at me, eyes searching, vulnerable in a way I wasn't prepared for. Then how do you prefer me? She asked. The question hung in the air like a live wire. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak my phone buzzed, shattering the moment. We both flinched. Elena stood abruptly, gathering her things. I should go. Long day tomorrow. Elena, it's fine, she said quickly. Too quickly. See you in the morning. And just like that she left. But the imprint of her hand stayed warm in mine long after the door closed. The slow unraveling something shifted between us after that night. We didn't talk about what happened. We danced around it. But it lived in every glance, every interruption of eye contact, every near brush of hands when we exchanged documents. And neither of us dared to touch the truth forming between us. Because the truth was dangerous. The truth was inevitable. The truth was her. But neither of us knew that the moment we finally acknowledged it, everything else around us would start to break. The next morning, San Francisco woke up wrapped in a thin veil of mist, and so did I. Sleep had been elusive, slipping through my fingers like sand. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Elena's expression the night before her exhaustion cracked through her armor. The softness in her voice. The tremble in her hand. The way she had asked, "How do you prefer me?" like it mattered. Maybe it did matter. Maybe more than I could admit. When I walked into the shared workspace we had rented for the month, she was already there, hunched over a tablet, her hair loosely tied back. The soft curls falling around her face made her look younger, almost gentle. As if the Elena heart the world feared and admired had stayed home for the day. She didn't look up when I entered. She didn't need to. "You're late," she said. "I'm 5 minutes early. For you, that's late." The familiar banter should have eased the tension. It didn't. I set my bag down. "About last night, not necessary," she interrupted. "It is." "No," she said firmly, eyes still glued to the tablet. "Please. Let's just focus on the work." My heart sank a little. She wasn't being cold. She was protecting something. Maybe both of us. "Okay," I said softly. For the next hour we worked in silence, the clicking of keyboards filling the room like a fragile shield. I tried focusing on the data set in front of me, but my mind kept drifting to her uneven breathing, the way her fingers had tightened around mine. She finally spoke without looking up. "Your model needs revising." "My model is fine." "Your model thinks a handwritten smiley face counts as emotional nuance." "Because it does. Humans are emotive creatures." She huffed. "It's an emoji with delusions." "You're an emoji with delusions." She finally turned to me, eyes wide. "Excuse me." I straightened my expression. "Strictly professionally speaking." A smile tugged at the corner of her lips, small but real. "Strictly professionally speaking, you're impossible. And you're intolerable. And yet here we are," she murmured. Her voice dropped at the end, softening into something neither of us knew how to address. The air between us thickened, warm and magnetic. Before anything could break, my phone rang. I stepped out to take the call. It was my COO, giving me a rundown of an unexpected funding complication. I reassured him, made a few decisions, and hung up. When I returned, Elena wasn't at her desk. Or anywhere in the room. "Elena," I called. She didn't answer. My chest tightened until her voice finally drifted from the hallway. "Out here." I stepped outside to find her leaning against the balcony railing, staring down at the city as if searching for something she had lost long ago. "You left without telling me," I said. "Didn't want to interrupt your call." "You never care about interrupting me." "That's not true." The quiet honesty in her tone shook me. I moved beside her, keeping just enough distance to be safe, and far too little to be comfortable. "What's really going on with you?" I asked gently. She didn't move for a long moment. The fog drifted between us, cool and silent. Finally she exhaled. "I didn't sleep much." "Headache again?" "No. Just thoughts. About work." She shook her head faintly. "About yesterday." My breath hitched. "Elena, I shouldn't have asked you that," she said softly. "How you prefer me." It was unprofessional. It wasn't. She looked at me, then really looked. Her eyes were a deep hazel, full of sharp brilliance and buried hurt. "You didn't answer," she whispered. I swallowed hard. Because I didn't know how. Her gaze flickered with something fragile. Then she straightened abruptly. "It doesn't matter. Forget it. We have a deadline." She walked past me before I could stop her. But I didn't forget it. Not for a second. The crack in her armor widens over the next several days. Our dynamic grew increasingly unpredictable. Some moments were perfectly professional, productive, brilliant even. But others were unbearably intimate in ways that neither of us acknowledged. One evening, as we were reviewing algorithmic bias models, Elena suddenly asked, "Do you think people can change their nature?" I blinked. "Where is that coming from?" "Just answer." "I think people evolve," I said. Maybe not their core, but their behavior. Their choices. Her fingers traced the edge of her laptop. I used to believe ambition was the only thing that mattered. That success justified everything. And now I'm not so sure. She didn't elaborate, but she didn't need to. I felt the shift in her. The vulnerability she tried so hard to hide. The weight she carried alone. You don't have to question that alone, I said. She looked at me like no one had ever said that to her before. Then slowly, cautiously, she nodded. But the moment dissolved when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, jaw tightening. Everything okay? I asked. Just something I need to handle, she said, standing abruptly. Elena, tomorrow. We'll continue this tomorrow. And she left, leaving behind a trail of worry I could not shake. A growing distance the next morning. She arrived late. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her usually immaculate outfit looked thrown together. Her smile was strained. Elena, I said carefully, you look. If you say tired, I will throw this coffee at you. I closed my mouth. She collapsed into her chair and opened her laptop. Let's get started. For 2 hours I watched her push herself with reckless determination. Her fingers moved too fast. Her breathing was uneven. Every few minutes, she pressed her thumb to her temple. Elena, stop, I said. I'm fine. You're not. Arya, drop it. No, her head snapped up, and for a heartbeat the room froze. Then her shoulders slumped in defeat. She whispered, I'm just under pressure. What kind of pressure? The kind I don't want you to worry about. That's not how this works. You don't get to collapse in my office one night and then shut me out the next. Her eyes widened. For a moment she looked like she might break again. Then she stood abruptly and walked toward the elevators. Without thinking, I followed. She stopped when she heard my footsteps, turning slowly, exhaustion making her expression unguarded. Why are you following me? Because you're not okay, and I'm not willing to pretend I don't see it. Her lips parted, trembling slightly. Then to my shock she whispered, Arya, I don't know how to do this. Do what? Her voice cracked. Let someone care. Something in me fractured as I stepped closer, my voice low. You don't have to know how. Just let me try. Her breath hitched. For the briefest, most fragile moment she didn't step back. She stepped forward. The moment that wasn't a kiss, we stood face to face in the quiet hallway. The hum of fluorescent lights buzzing above us. Her eyes drifted to my lips, then away quickly as if caught stealing. Her chest rose and fell unsteadily. Arya, she whispered. I held my breath. So did she. 1 more inch. 1 more breath. 1 more heartbeat. But then the elevator dinged. The sound sliced through the moment like a blade. Elena flinched back as if waking from a spell. I should go, she said, retreating. Elena, wait. She shook her head. I can't. Not right now. I watched helplessly as she stepped into the elevator, her expression a mixture of longing and fear. The doors closed. And for the first time I realized something that terrified me. This wasn't a rivalry anymore. I wasn't even sure it was just attraction. It was something deeper. Something fragile. Something with teeth. The shift in everything. She didn't return that afternoon. She didn't show up the next morning. By noon I was pacing. By 3 I had emailed her. By 5 I had texted. No response. 7 I finally received a message. Need some time. Don't worry. I stared at my screen. Don't worry was not comforting. Not from someone who carried too many secrets in her eyes. I typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted again. Finally I wrote, call me if you need anything. She didn't answer. The thing that made me run to her the next day. I woke up to a headline alert. Lioness Labs under scrutiny. CO Elena Hart faces internal crisis amid rapid expansion. My blood turned to ice. I rushed through the article. A board member had leaked concerns about overextension. Rumors of burnout within engineering teams. Pressure from investors. Anonymous complaints. It wasn't catastrophic. But it was enough. Enough to break someone already on the edge. Enough to explain the tremor in her hands. The sleepless nights. The avoidance. I didn't think. I grabbed my coat and headed straight to her office. Lioness Labs was buzzing, frantic and disorganized in a way I had never seen. Employees whispered in hallways. Assistants ran between meeting rooms. When I reached her floor, her assistant looked like she hadn't slept in days. "I need to see Elena," I said urgently. "She's in her office," but the assistant hesitated. "She's not taking visitors." "I'm not a visitor." Something in my tone must have been sharp enough to cut steel because she didn't argue. She just stepped aside. I opened the door quietly. Elena sat at her desk, elbows on her knees, head in her hands. Her shoulders shook. My heart shattered. "Elena," I whispered. She didn't look up. "Please. Not right now." But I crossed the room anyway, kneeling in front of her the same way I had the night she'd broken in my office. She didn't push me away. She just whispered, "Everything's falling apart." "No," I said softly. "You're just carrying too much." "I can't breathe," she admitted, voice breaking. "I feel like I'm drowning." "You're not alone." She lifted her head slowly, tears streaking her face. It was the most painful and the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. "Why are you here?" she asked, voice trembling. "Because you didn't call me," I said. "And I told you to call me." Her lips parted, startled. In a broken whisper she said, "I didn't think you meant it." I cupped her hands gently. "I meant every word." A sob escaped her, not loud but raw. Then she leaned forward until her forehead touched mine, her breath warm and shaking. And in that fragile, trembling moment, I understood something with absolute clarity. This woman, this brilliant, stubborn, guarded woman, had never been held together by anyone. So I held her. We stayed like that for a long time, breathing, breaking, and finally beginning to heal. Elena stayed pressed against me, her forehead resting against mine, her breath shaky but slowly evening out. The walls around her seemed to crumble piece by piece, not in a destructive way but in a fragile, necessary one. She wasn't the CEO the world feared, or the rival I'd battled for years. She was just a woman who had carried too much for too long, holding herself together with ambition and impossible expectations. And now she was letting herself lean. I didn't move until she exhaled softly, a sound that carried exhaustion and surrender in equal measure. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were still red, but something inside them had shifted. Not brightness, not hope just yet, but space. She had finally made space for something other than pressure. "I'm sorry you had to see me like this," she whispered. "There's nothing to be sorry for," I said gently. She shook her head weakly. "You don't understand. I don't fall apart. Ever. Not in front of my board. Not my team. Not my investors. And definitely not in front of you." Her voice cracked at the end of the sentence. I took her hands again. "Elena, I'm not here as your rival." "Then what are you here as?" she asked softly. "Because I can't figure it out. I don't know what we are." I swallowed. "I don't know either. But whatever we are, we're not enemies anymore." Her lips trembled, forming the shadow of a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "That scares me." "I know," I said. "It scares me too." The honesty hung heavy in the room, but for once it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like truth. And truth had a way of freeing more than it trapped. Elena leaned back in her chair, wiping the last tear from her cheek with the back of her hand. "I should probably get myself together before the board meeting." "You shouldn't go in this state." "I don't have a choice." "Yes, you do," I insisted softly. "Let someone else handle it for an hour. For once in your life, let yourself breathe." Her laughter was small but almost real. "If I breathe too long, Lioness Labs might spontaneously combust." "Then let it burn for an hour," I said. "The world won't end." She looked at me for a long time, searching for the lie in my words. When she didn't find one, her shoulders finally dropped. "Okay," she whispered. She let her eyes close for a moment, her breathing finally leveling out into something calm and steady. When she opened them again, she exhaled with more control. "I'm glad you're here," she said quietly. The confession hit harder than it should have. "Me too." The first real step, we left her office together, earning a few stunned looks from employees who had only ever known us as professional enemies. I ignored them. So did she. Elena walked slower than usual, not because she was weak but because she wasn't using her armor as fuel. It made her movements softer, more deliberate. We found an empty lounge on the top floor, walls made of glass overlooking the sprawling city below. Late afternoon sunlight washed the room in a gold haze. "Sit," I said softly. She obeyed without protest, sinking into the couch. I took the seat next to her, close but not touching. She stared at the skyline for a long time, fingers tapping anxiously against her knee. "I grew up believing that success was the only thing that mattered," she said quietly. "My parents said that if I wasn't the best, I was nothing." I listened. They weren't cruel. Just ambitious. Too ambitious. She swallowed. "They pushed me because no one pushed them, and I thought if I ran fast enough, it would finally be enough." Her voice trembled again. "But it wasn't," I said. "No," she whispered. "It never was. And I don't know how to stop running." "You don't have to stop," I told her. "You just don't have to run alone." She looked at me with an expression so raw it almost hurt to see. "Why are you being so kind to me?" "Because someone should be." She inhaled a shaky breath. "You know, I used to tell myself you hated me." "I didn't hate you," I said softly. "I feared you sometimes. You were relentless. Brilliant. Too good at making me feel small." "That wasn't my intention." "I know, but rivalry makes everything sharper." She nodded slowly. "It shaped us." "It did," I said. "But it doesn't have to define us." A long silence followed. Then Elena did something unexpected. She reached for my hand. Her fingers brushed mine hesitantly, as if asking permission. I turned my hand over, letting her slide her fingers into the spaces between mine. Her grip tightened slowly. "Thank you," she whispered. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The fallout the next day brought chaos we couldn't escape. News outlets swarmed the story about lioness lapse. Analysts speculated. Investors panicked. Social media spiraled. Elena walked into the office with quiet resolve, determination replacing panic. She spent the morning with her board, emerging with a neutral expression that gave nothing away. When I approached her afterward, she offered a faint smile. "Still standing," she said. "Barely." She smirked weakly. "Barely counts." I studied her closely. "Are you really okay?" "No," she admitted. "But I'm getting there." "Good. And," she added softly, "I'm letting myself rely on you. A little." Her voice cracked on rely. I squeezed her hand. "That's enough." The proposal takes shape despite everything crumbling around her. Our collaboration flourished. Late nights turned into early mornings. Stress turned into unexpected laughter. The work, once tense and exhausting, became the glue that pulled us closer. One night, past midnight, we sat surrounded by whiteboards and half-finished cups of coffee. Elena stretched, groaning. "If I die, tell the world I was murdered by bureaucracy." I laughed. "They'll believe it." She threw a crumpled paper ball at me. "You're supposed to deny it." "Sorry. I'm brutally honest under sleep deprivation." She smiled, soft and genuine. "I like your honesty." I blinked. "You do." "Yeah," she said quietly. "It makes me feel safe." My heart did an alarming flip. She didn't take it back. The turning point 2 days before the deadline, after a long morning of meetings and revisions, Elena asked if we could walk to clear our heads. We wandered through Mission Bay, a crisp breeze coming off the water. She was unusually quiet. "Penny for your thoughts," I said. She stopped walking. "I'm afraid," she whispered. "Of what?" "You," she said. "And this. Whatever this is." I stepped closer. "Elena." "No, let me finish." She pulled in a shaky breath. "I don't know how to do this without ruining it. I don't know how to be vulnerable without falling apart. And you make me want things I've never allowed myself to want." Her voice broke at the last word. I reached up and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. For once she didn't flinch. "Elena," I said softly, "I don't want you to be perfect. I just want you. The real you. Even the messy parts." Her lips parted, eyes wide. "Aria." "Yes. I think I'm falling for you." The world went still. So did my heart. Then I whispered, "I think I'm falling for you too." She didn't kiss me. I didn't kiss her. But we stood there under the California sky. Two women who had pretended to be enemies for far too long, finally acknowledging the truth. And that was enough to change everything. The final day we submitted the proposal on time. Exhausted, frayed but proud. The federal panel praised the joint work as groundbreaking. Overnight, the narrative shifted from rivalry to collaboration. And something inside both of us shifted too. That evening I found Elena on the rooftop terrace, staring at the sunset. She didn't turn when I approached. "You know," she said, "we make a good team." "We do." "Professionally," she clarified. I nudged her shoulder. "Professionally." She hesitated. "And maybe, personally." "If you want that," I said softly. She turned to me, eyes glowing in the fading light. "I do," she whispered. "But slowly. Carefully." I nodded. "Slow is fine. Careful is fine. And if I mess up, I'll still be here." Her breath trembled with relief. Then she took my hand. Not hesitantly. Not fearfully. But with quiet certainty. The city lights flickered to life below us, painting the world in gold. She leaned her head against my shoulder. For once she let herself rest. And for once I let myself hope. We stood there long into the night, two women who had spent years tearing each other down, now building something fragile and breathtaking together. Something real. Something that felt like the beginning of forever. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.